Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Midweek Mix-Up Podcast, episode 50. And this week, I say a second episode of the week, actually, we have a special guest in Kelechi Apakama, who was originally a sole developer for the idiot Xbox game Stormrite, which is coming up next year. Fingers crossed that stays in line. We know how things can be.
Ice cream man!
Interrupted by an ice cream man. It's a new one. Dear me. But yes, so before we get into the question, we will introduce the two interrogators today. First of all, obviously myself, the host, WandrinDutch. I have just literally been setting things up again, getting ready to do two shows this evening. Obviously, this one first and foremost with Kelechi. And then straight after that, the Sony show. Fingers crossed that will be decent as well. Welcome everybody in chat. Of course, please help us out and share it out to people. That would be absolutely awesome. First of all, we will introduce Mr. Hertog Vin. Hertog, how's your day been, brother? What you been up to today?
I was helping my mother and my stepfather out by building. I don't know how you call it. You know,
a shed
outside the house.
Right. Yeah.
Paint the house.
Nice.
Yeah, trellis.
Iron bars.
Yeah.
A trellis?
A trellis. Yeah.
A trellis. Okay. Yeah, I built that, and further the kids were at home. I streamed The Last of Us a bit further, like 1 hour 40 minutes or something. Then I had to go. That's about it.
No problem, brother. No problem. So, at least you've had a little bit of gaming in today, then. It's more than I've had.
Yeah? How come?
Work.
Oh, yeah.
Work, home, eat, and then I've got two consoles I'm currently doing at the moment. There's a console for a certain gentleman in the chat, a custom Series S that he has in the works that I'm sure he will be over the moon with when it arrives. But having fun decorating those at the moment. But yes, our special guest today, Kelechi. To be fair, I think the studio name, is that after yourself as well?
Yeah, we don't really have an official studio name. That's just like an entity that I set up to like start doing business. But
yeah,
unnamed studio, I guess you could call it. I don't really know.
Unnamed so far. I was going to say I wouldn't worry about it. We had Joan for quite a while from Song of Iron, and he technically, he had a studio name. It was called Escape for a while, but it was kind of just a placeholder name, should we say? And now he's settled on it, and this is like just before launch, about a week before launch. He settled on an actual studio name and resting Relic. So you've got plenty of time to decide what you want to name yourself.
It's funny because initially, like back in the day, I used to go under the studio name Precinct Games. I kind of ditched that because I watched a GDC talk by Bennett Foddy, you know, the guy that made Getting Over It.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting guy, very interesting talk. And he was basically talking about like, unless you're an established entity, it's probably better to go as a sole person. If you're one person yourself, there's no reason to hide behind a studio name. And I've just been going with that for a while. But now we've got a team, I probably should, think about setting up a studio.
About something.
Yeah.
But you have some things in mind then?
You got any ideas in mind? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Do you talk to the other guys that work with you now? Like, you come up with a name, all of you together, or?
Yeah, I'll probably come up with a name with them. I've had a couple ideas, but nothing's really got past the draft stage. And as well with the name, you got to think, is it taken by someone? Does it sound like something else as well? So there's a lot of things you got to think about, but that's down the line.
And then the logo that goes along with it. And...
yeah, exactly. It's a lot of work.
Oh yeah. Too right. But we'll get straight into it. First of all, a little bit of history for yourself before we dive into looking into the game itself and showing people in chat who haven't seen the game that awesome gameplay trailer that you showed off at Xbox for Xbox ID Showcase. First of all, when did you decide that you wanted to start game development, and how did you end up getting into it in the first place?
So it all started off. I was actually doing the dishes, and I was quite bored. This was the summer before year 12. I'm not sure what that translates to in other countries' education systems, but I was basically just like, oh, I want to try something, try make something, because I knew how to program in Python. So then I started a text-based football game, which is I went back to it last week actually. It's about 20 minutes of gameplay in total. It's nothing big, but I made that, then I turned it into like a 2D-ish kind of game. Then I thought, oh, let me try 3D. Went to Cryengine, went to Unity, and then I settled on Unreal because it was just like a nice. I don't know, it seemed quite easy for starters. I know people say that Unity's the best for starters, but personally, I found Unreal was so much easier to start with. And from then, it was just a case of like I just kept posting on like Twitter and Reddit and Discord and stuff, and just people seemed interested, so I just made more games.
Awesome stuff.
So,
Awesome stuff.
and that soccer game you were talking about, is
Yeah.
it released or was it a private project? Is it? Can we buy it or see it or?
Oh no, so all my previous projects have been free or unreleased. So the first one was just unreleased. It's just sitting on my laptop somewhere. And I could release it if I wanted to, but it's nothing special.
Okay.
But yeah, my first released game, I guess, was Pixel Invaders on the App Store. That didn't really get too many downloads, but then I made another football game after that called Keep It Up, and that did a bit better. I think it's like on 20,000 downloads now. And then since then, I haven't released anything because I've just been working on Stormrite for a year and a half now.
That game is also on phone.
But
Go on.
Go.
Go on, Vin.
Okay. The game you said that it has 20,000 downloads. Is that also
Yeah.
on a phone or Xbox?
yeah, that's also mobile. So I haven't released a
Okay.
PC game. Yeah, I've made them in the past, but only for game jams or just personal projects.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned diving into three separate engines there. They're all very well established and well known engines. How did you
Yeah.
find? Because we know as well when Cryengine is at full tilt, that thing can produce some spectacular results. How difficult was it in comparison to Unreal, which obviously Cryengine isn't well known specifically in the ID sector. It's not well known for an ID to go into Cryengine and have a look at that. They normally, like
Yeah.
you say, stick to Unity or Unreal. But how different was it, Cryengine, in comparison in terms of difficulty to kind of get something up and running, or even just a kind of vertical slice as we know them?
Yeah. So I mean, CryEngine was it was a decent engine, but I just found it was because as a starter and as a beginner with no game dev experience in the 3D space, I had to use like community tutorials and stuff. So I didn't there wasn't really that for CryEngine, like the community wasn't that big. So that's why I just quickly went to Unity. Because I only tried CryEngine because the first game on my Xbox that I got was Rise Son of Rome, and I'm pretty
Yes.
sure that was made in CryEngine.
Oh yeah.
That was I really
Yeah.
liked that game. I really did.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was really the only reason I tried CryEngine.
Yeah, it's a really good engine, to be fair. And that's why it was obviously CryEngine and Crytek made what was known as the PC killer for quite some time in Crysis. And then of course Rise Son of Rome holds up to this day on Xbox and PC. Like that thing is a beautiful game. It is like
Amazing.
considering it's God knows how long now, it literally stands up in terms of its aesthetics and what it looks like.
2013.
Yeah, 2000 exactly. God, I feel old now. But going into Unreal now, of course, have you now went into the transition of already downloading Unreal Engine 5? Are you still working on the previous Unreal Engine 4?
So we're still on Unreal Engine 4.26, but we are transitioning to 5 over the next couple of months. I'm just going to do it because I need to get a new PC because I'm trying to integrate some NVIDIA techniques and they aren't compatible with my current NVIDIA graphics card. So I need to upgrade my setup anyway, and I might as well transition over to Unreal 5 when I've got my new setup. But that is definitely something we're doing probably before the end of the year. So when we release our demo at the start of next year, it will be on Unreal 5.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And when
Incredible.
you mentioned you're releasing the demo as well, so when is that? When are you hoping to have that little vertical slice demo out in the public?
Yeah, we're looking for Q1 next year. So I would say around late February, early March. So that would be like the last public build of our game before release. and it just gives hopefully the players like an idea of the game. Because I was thinking of we could do a demo now, we could do a demo next month, could do a demo 2 months from now. But the thing about the demo is I don't want to put people off playing the game when it comes out just because the demo wasn't up to scratch. Like I want the demo to be representative of the game when it releases.
Yeah.
So the only reason someone wouldn't play the game when it releases is because they didn't like the demo because of how the game is. Because then fair enough, you probably won't like the game when it releases. But if you don't like the demo because it was buggy or it had some problems that will be fixed in the final game, that's just getting rid of players that could have downloaded my game when it comes out.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Let's go into a little bit of history of yourself then, in terms of your favorite games and favorite game console. Of all, obviously, for everybody in chat, believe it or not, and this is probably one of the youngest game developers I've met. Kelechi is only 20 years old. So I mean that in itself is a great achievement. We were saying just behind the scenes before we started, when I was 20 years old, something as intricate as game development wasn't even in my mind. Like, wasn't even thinking about stuff like that at that point. So it's a massive kind of accomplishment yourself to be able to jump into it, have the I wouldn't say just the qualifications, but have the know-how, have the knowledge, be resilient, because game development's not a straightforward thing. At your age, you've got to have some resilience to stick in with coding and debugging and fixing, and just development as a whole isn't easy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But the history of yourself in terms of your favorite console, first of all, where did you start? What's your console path? What have you had in your lifetime so far?
So I would say I probably started gaming. Earliest I remember properly getting into games was the PS2. Definitely, I was just playing with my brother all the time. We play PES, WWE, GTA San Andreas, literally, I can't remember because there were so many different games I just used to play, but they had to be 2-player or something I could watch my brother play. Because at that age, there's a big age gap between me and my brother as well. I was just watching him play games quite a lot of the time, but I was enjoying it as well. So, that was when I started console gaming. But I did play a lot on the PSP, the DS, even PS Vita at one point. I've dabbled in a lot of consoles, but then PS3 was the first console that I really started buying games for myself and deciding which games I wanted to play.
Yeah.
And that's when I fell in love with Skyrim. I played so much Skyrim, it was unbelievable. And then I was playing FIFA the whole time because just growing up as a boy in England, like you end up playing a lot of FIFA, especially if you like football.
Yeah.
I just played a lot of FIFA and Xbox One. So I don't know why I made the switch from PlayStation to Xbox. It was probably just because my friends all had Xboxes. That was when I pretty much just only played FIFA, exclusively played FIFA, a bit of GTA, COD as well, played Battlefield a bit. But it was just mainly the mainstream games, and I kind of fell off playing smaller games, and I want to get back into doing that. So I've started playing some indie games now, especially being an indie game developer. But yeah, that's my gaming history.
That's awesome. And I'm guessing then on FIFA, and I'll ask you the ultimate FIFA question then for online game playing. Is it Ultimate Team or Pro Clubs?
My mates will know I'm not a fan of Ultimate Team at all. Pro clubs. You play pro clubs all the time. I used to play Player Career as well, but I stayed far away from Ultimate Team.
Yeah, exactly the same.
It's Master League in PES, right? So.
Oh yeah. To be fair, I like my club in PES. I switched to PES recently because I just got fed up with FIFA. But yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get back on topic, then, have you seen? What do you make of the transition then that Pro Evo is no longer a football game and now it's e-soccer or e-football or whatever it's called?
It hurts me to my core because like I said, when I first played football games, I was growing up on PES 04, played that so much, and that's what PES was about, like football games. It wasn't about the money. And when they announced that, I was angry because I just switched to PES because I believed that PES were like Konami cared more about the game than EA, and then they did that. I was annoyed. I even tweeted on Twitter. I was just very disappointed. Very disappointed.
Awesome stuff. When your favorite, you mentioned you spent a lot of time on Skyrim, and it's quite, I wouldn't say it's quite obvious, but it's apparent when you have a look at the game that you've created, because the first thing I seen on that was like, I know where he's getting his inspirations from. But no, it's absolutely awesome. And to be fair, hats off to you because that game is looking tremendous so far. And like you say, it's
Thank you.
you haven't even got to the point where you're starting to do the polishing and figuring it out and fixing all the bugs. And but what's your favorite aside from Skyrim? What's your kind of favorite game genre? Then what favorite game series throughout the years have you really enjoyed?
Um, I don't really play game series apart from the obvious ones like FIFA and COD. Um, yeah, FIFA would have to be my favorite game series. Football Manager's up there as well. That's the game I play most right now. But I don't really. It's strange because I am making an open world RPG, and I've seen a lot of inspirations. I've played like a couple of Assassin's Creed games, played a bit of The Witcher, played Skyrim a lot. But apart from that, I haven't really played the genre much, which is a bit strange because I'm making an open world RPG. But I feel like it's in one sense it's good because then I won't be drawn to take ideas from these games because I haven't played them much. Like I'm coming up with a lot of original ideas because I haven't got things just influencing me subconsciously.
Yeah.
But yeah, my favorite game series, I guess, is FIFA, even though I'm not a fan of EA.
Yeah, no one's a fan of EA, but unfortunately, unfortunately, they
brilliant.
make a couple of good games that we just need to play.
Yeah.
On that front, then, yeah, obviously you loved Skyrim. You put many hours into it, like most of us did, to be honest. I mean, I only put, and I say only, but I only put probably about 200, maybe 300 hours into the Skyrim when I played it years back.
Okay.
But I knew people that played that game for thousands of hours. Literally were never off that game. Thousands upon thousands of hours. And you got to a point though in Skyrim where you were literally indestructible. When you had the top dog armor, you could just walk in front of a dragon and just be like, well, what? Or the troll that used to hit you into the atmosphere, and you just used to stand there and just say, well, you're not doing any damage anymore. That's it. It's easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Easy game. But I'm also quite surprised then that you potentially haven't played the Witcher series, being a lover of open world RPGs. Is that something that you would be looking to get into then? Looking to dive into and see what that's about?
Yeah, well, I played a bit of The Witcher 3 at one point not too long ago. Then I stopped. And I don't know why I stopped. I think I was just playing other games at this point. But I've said that I'm going to get back into it and probably complete the game because it would be a nice reference point as well. And it looks like obviously a very good game. So I would definitely play it sometime soon.
Most definitely. We will get into then the start of where the game idea come from. Of course, we know your inspirations are primarily Skyrim, but where did you think after you've mentioned the making these little portable phone football games and then kind of elaborating on it to get used to development, etc. What made you then take seriously a very sharp 180 and do something completely the opposite and say, right, I'm making an action open world RPG?
Yeah, so I was just making mobile games alongside doing prototypes for PC games at the same time. Like if you look at the folder Unreal projects on my computer, it's literally a graveyard of ideas. Like I've got about 20 unfinished, just small projects that initially were good as prototypes. When I decided to expand them, I thought, okay, maybe this isn't the right thing. Let me move on. So even though I've only released 2 games, it might seem like it's a sharp jump, but the whole time I was making PC games already, so it wasn't too much of a transition for me. But yeah, the only reason that the only games I have released are mobile games is because those are the only ones I've finished and polished and done the whole process for.
Yeah, but again, going into the history behind I'm intrigued to know this really the story behind this new game you've got coming up, because it is I'm obviously won't play the sound of the trailer we've got coming up now, but when people see this game, it does look really impressive, and I'm very interested to know the story behind it. So can you give us a bit of a story premise behind your game?
Yeah. So Stormrite set in like a fantasy medieval setting. It's set in the Kingdom of Redreach, and it's essentially there's different sets of maps with different stories behind them. So the main overarching story, although I don't want to go too deep into it, there's a creature called Requiem, and he's got a very troubled history, and he kind of like he is orchestrating what's happening in the game behind the scenes, and you come to a realization at some point of what's going on and what role he places in the world. But the idea behind the magic and the magic in the world is the Stormrite. So there's these scrolls that grant power, but each one grants a specific set of powers, and you have to earn the right to use those powers by, again, it would spoil the story if I went into it, but you have to gain the right to use the powers. And there's just a few different main storylines. There's a war between the north and the south of the map. There's the Agrippa storyline in the center of the map, which is like a Roman-inspired kind of city. And there's different bits of it. There's the lore on website if you want to find out, because it would be quite hard to explain it all. But yeah, the main story is the Stormrites and Requiem.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. It sounds like it's quite intricate. Actually, you haven't went for the usual approach. I know we say that Skyrim did have some kind of branching storylines, but this seems like it's got several main storylines, all in different sections. So, let's kind of introduce us to the main character, the person you play. Who is it? Who's the main character in the story? Who do you play?
So you play the role of a young squire that starts in the small mining village of Silverhorn, and Silverhorn is essentially torn between the war. So it's in between the war, hasn't aligned itself to either side, and along the game you're going to have to decide which allegiance you align yourself with. And the player themselves lives with their sister in the town of Silverhorn, and you essentially travel the world while being part of Silverhorn's community, but you're doing things on behalf of Silverhorn at the start, and then eventually you can align with someone else. But you are essentially just a blank slate, a young squire with no real intense traumatic backstory, but you create your own story in the game.
That's good. It's a breath of fresh air, because normally everyone's got some really traumatic, like Skyrim. You've just been arrested and you're in the middle of some kind of war, and everybody hates you. You just want to get hung, or you're beheaded, or like something traumatic happens immediately. So it's refreshing to see that no, on this occasion you're just a squire. Like, there is no traumatic backstory. You just mold your future, like become what you want to become. What made you then? Because it isn't, especially for a first, should we say, not only major game, but your first big game on any platform. What made you go down such an intricate story path? What made you think, right, I'm going to do not only just a singular story, but branching story and multiple story arcs and multiple characters and multiple areas and lands, and it's a lot to take on for a first project. And I mean, again, hats off to you, but it is a lot to take on. So what made you kind of what was the decision-making route behind that?
So when we reference old games like Skyrim and The Witcher isn't as old, but it's still quite old, we always forget that they were made back in the day. Like, Skyrim was released in 2011, and they started development in like 2009, 2010. So there's a lot of things that they had to focus on that weren't contributing to the game directly. They were like having to do a lot of optimization, a lot of like loading stuff, and with the tools we have nowadays, we can skip so many of those menial, boring tasks that don't contribute to the gameplay, just focus on stuff that does add content. So for me, myself, we've got the dialogue system done, the quest system is basically done, and it's all really quick to do. So now we can just add content and build content into the game. So when I made the decision to make such a complex storyline, I was like, well, I'm not making a multiplayer game, so there's no networking, none of that you have to handle. So it makes the actual programming not as hard. So I can really just go wild with this and, go as far as I want to.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I've done.
Awesome stuff. And again, there's so many powers there. Now you get what I can see in that trailer there, though, is also what looks like the ability to harness a dragon. Is that yourself, or is that the bad guy?
That is potentially yourself later on in the game. But that's one of the powerful spells we've got written out. And
Potentially.
potentially, if you take the right path, potentially yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah. So there's a lot of cool spells that you can, because the end game, the idea is the magic is the strongest thing you can be. Like a magic character is definitely the most OP way you can do it in the game, but at the start it's really hard to get onto. So it's kind of a trade-off. If you have a harder start, you get an easier end and a cooler end with loads of the different spells. So it just depends what you want
Oh,
to do.
okay.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. And what
But,
in terms of go on, Vin.
I'm just wondering, if I hear you talk about mobile games and PC and stuff. How do you get to the point that Xbox idea at Xbox is that like do they contact you or do you offer your ID or what you made at that point to them or how does that work?
Yeah, so they've got a form on their website. If you go to the Idea Xbox section on their website, they've got a form that you fill in, and you just enter your game's details, send a video of the game, maybe a demo of the game as well, and they basically decide if they want to add you to the Idea Xbox program or not. So
Is that that simple?
yeah, literally.
Oh wow.
That's
Okay.
awesome. We asked this question of everybody as well with that's worked with the Idea Xbox program over the years, but how have you found working with that particular team? I know they've Joe in particular just says they're pretty hands off, but if you need them, they're always there. How have you found working with Idea Xbox?
Yeah, literally everything was so easy for me to like get into because when you have any problems, you just email your representative. If they can't answer it, they email someone, and everything gets sorted within like 1 or 2 days. So you really don't have any problems at any point. And even me, like I remember, so when I sent off the application, I put in an email address at the @stormrite.com domain, but I didn't realize for like 4 months the emails weren't coming through to the domain, and I'd set up the emails completely wrong. So I missed the email from them, and then I chased it up, and that seems like such a complicated issue, but it literally got sorted in like 1 or 2 days, and I was on the program, even though they accepted me before, but I didn't know. Like just things like that, they just help you so quickly. It's ridiculous. So yeah, it's a brilliant team, and obviously because it's my first time doing anything like this, I need a lot of help, and I got it all.
That's really good to hear. Really good to hear. I don't know whether or not they do this initially, but have they provided you with, because obviously your game's not just on Xbox One, but it's also on Xbox Series X and S. Are you going to be pushing to have enhancements for the Series X and S, or are you just going to be using kind of the additional power to pump out high resolutions, etc.? What is it you're going to be doing that's going to be different compared to a base console versus the Series consoles?
So we're gonna develop for the Series X and then produce like a toned down version for the Xbox One. So we can leverage the power of the Series X, but also put out a good enough product for the Xbox One. So it is very much next gen focused, not current gen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And do they provide a dev kit to yourself at this particular point, or have they yet?
I'm not allowed to go into the details of the dev kits. So yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
I'm just trying to cover all bases.
Yeah, no, it's all right. That's fine. Obviously, we don't want to know the specs. We all know. I know kind of Jason Ronald and David Prien anyway from Xbox. But we know the dev kits are slightly above what you would get in terms of a normal Series X and Series S to give you a little bit more headroom. But it also, I know obviously some Idea Xbox devs get them immediately. I know Joe didn't get his immediately, but only because he started development prior to the series launching, so he had to wait a little bit on there. But how's it been developing for Series X and S? I mean, obviously you're coming into the point now where you're starting a fresh generation on the tail end of a previous gen, which is really good for yourselves as well because you've got some really good hardware to really pluck at. You're not kind of starting an ID game at the end of a generation where and then all of a sudden your game's out, it's been out a couple of months and then the new gen's there and you're like, oh, missed that one. How has it been developing on for a next gen system then straight away?
Yeah, so I haven't specifically tried to leverage the power of the system yet because the game in its current state can run on basically anything because it's not as intensive as a full game, you know what I mean? So we haven't yet started developing for those features, but we've been thinking about how we will and planning it out. It's all quite simple. We can see how we're going to do it and how we're going to use the power of the console. And I'm just excited to see how it all turns out, really.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Is this are you planning on, let's say some base features, are you planning on a certain performance threshold that you're looking to hit? Is there any kind of things that you want to achieve? What's your kind of goals? What are you, performance-wise, what's your goals for the game when it releases?
So performance wise, without saying, obviously 60 FPS, just smooth minimum, and if we can go higher, we will go higher. And then loading times is a problem in some open world games, but we are aiming for minimal to no loading times where possible. Like, I don't like how when you go into a house in Skyrim, obviously I'm saying Skyrim again, but they made their game about 15 years ago, so there is leeway, or like 12 years ago. But I don't want you to press A to go into the house, have to wait through a loading screen. Even if the loading screen takes like 5 seconds, it just breaks the immersion. So we want to go into that house, you step into the house, and it unloads the world behind you and loads the house instantly. That's kind of what we're going for, just smooth transitions that don't break immersion.
That's
like
awesome. That's awesome
Yeah.
stuff. Brilliant. With regards then, let's dive a little bit deeper into the game itself. The enemy types, what can we look forward to? I'm obviously not giving away some of the bosses or some of the major enemies, but some of the enemy types that you can see in this. Obviously, it won't just be humans, it won't be just other soldiers, but who else can we expect to see in here that's going to give us some trouble?
Yeah, so you'll be seeing general wildlife like wolves and deers and bears and stuff like that, usual things. But then there's also some really, really cool characters and concepts we've been concepting. Like just recently, we got a couple like nocturnal creatures that we've concepted, and we'll probably be releasing the concepts and the designs in like the next week to the community. We're trying to create a world that on the surface at daytime seems like a normal world, but at nighttime all the evil and horrible things come out to play, and that's when it really becomes a problem. So it's more of a the day is kind of like Minecraft in the sense that day is fine, night's bad.
Oh yeah.
But there will also be some dangerous creatures in the daytime as well.
Awesome stuff. Just normal wildlife, no doubt. Some of the bears and things like that will be dangerous, but you're gonna have. Is this kind of like a fantasy RPG then? A fantasy action open world RPG?
Yeah, so it's fantasy but historical in the sense that it's set around medieval time after the fall of the Roman Empire. So like Vikings, medieval time, that kind of sense. So there'll be some historical accuracy, but we'll deviate from it because it's a fantasy setting.
That's good for you, Drew.
As a Viking.
Yeah, the Vikings.
That's
Okay,
absolutely
spoiled
awesome.
lately, mate.
And is this game then, obviously it's coming out for Xbox One and the Xbox Series consoles, are you also putting it out on Steam? Is that an idea, or is it just coming to consoles first and then a PC port later, or what's happening with that?
Yeah, so we've got a Steam page up right now. The plan is a PC and console release, and on PC it will be Steam is the store we're going for right now. It's available to wishlist. The Steam page is up, so yeah, it's definitely coming to Steam.
Brilliant, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
I'll get an Xbox. I need
What
some
is-
achievements.
Yeah, achievements exactly. Is that? I mean, that'll be something that's coming close to the end. But I'm guessing you've already started writing down some fun achievements that you want in that game. Is there do you kind of do it as you go along, or is it something that you wait until the end to start pushing, thinking about achievements? Or
Yeah, it's always good to think about them as you're going, like even Easter eggs and just fun little things you can put in, like just dot around the world, because it just brings it to life and adds something for the player to find. But yeah, we've got some achievements, some fun Easter eggs, a couple Skyrim related Easter eggs. But yeah, we'll don't want to give too much away, obviously.
yeah. Is it going to be an Easter egg, the arrow to the knee Easter egg, or not that?
Maybe not that blatant, but you know, something. If you played Skyrim, you'd be able to
You'll know.
understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Awesome
need to play
stuff.
Skyrim then.
Yes, you do. You never played Skyrim? Have you never played Skyrim?
I tried it. I'm sorry, I didn't like it. Back then.
Blasphemy.
I think it was. I think it was on the Xbox 360. I think I tried it, but I couldn't get into it. Maybe now I can. But
Yeah,
I mean-
well, wait a couple of months. You're gonna have the next gen enhanced version of Skyrim, the 99th release.
yeah, of course, exactly. So I might jump back into it. You know.
It is a really
I
good
did
game.
like
It's
it.
you get addicted to it. It's
It's
one of
definitely
them.
worth it.
Yeah.
100% it's worth it.
100%. Now, the world itself seems rather large in comparison to obviously Skyrim at the time. That was a very large world. In comparison to that, are you larger than that? What's the scale of the map that you're going for?
Yeah, so Skyrim is about 6.5 by 6.5 kilometers. I think it's 38, 39 square kilometers. I'm not sure the exact dimensions, but ours is 8 kilometers by 8 kilometers, so 64 square kilometers. So it's not too much bigger in comparison, but it's
Still
manageable
much bigger.
for a
Yeah,
team of our size and still big, yeah.
still much bigger. Yeah,
That's big, man.
yeah, big in size,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah,
And that,
for such a small team, it's really big.
so how many? Obviously, you started by yourself as a sole developer. Um, through the stages of development, when did you think, right? I think I need a few more people on this project. When did you think, right? Okay, it's time to scale up a little bit, and how many people have you now got working on that team as well?
So it started off in January 2020 as just me, and then I posted some stuff to Reddit and just showed the game off and just built up a following. But then August of 2020 was our first public test, and that was when it kind of really kicked off just on all platforms, and we got a lot of downloads as well, and we had some attention. And there were some people that I was kind of talking to at the start, but I couldn't bring them onto the team because it's a big project to commit to this early without being able to see monetary benefits straight away. So I was speaking to a couple of people. Kim, our senior artist right now, I was speaking to him before I even started to do the hiring process. Then we released the public test. And just as I'm about to go to him to ask if he wants to join the team, he sends a message to me asking if he can be on the team. So it kind of all just fell into place at the perfect time. And then he joined the team. Then we got a concept artist, goes by Iron Alligator on Twitter. Very talented. I love his art style. And he does all the concept drawings for us. So then we were working with just us three for a while. March this year comes along, we do another public test, and then I bring on Alex, our concept art, our character artist. Sorry, so he handles the player models, the monsters, the creatures, all that stuff. Or not the player model, sorry, but the clothing and armor and monsters, creatures and stuff. And he joined the team like a month later. So we're currently a team of 4, but now we're hiring team members on like a contract basis or like a 3-4 month basis because of we've got our budget now, we've got our Kickstarter budget, so we're contracting some work out and bringing on temporary team members, but the permanent team members are just us 4 right now.
Okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's still very much like you say, the scale of the game as well is really impressive. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and these stones that you see on here, you can definitely see it's you've got the inspiration from Norse and Nordic, because that's some Nordic runes you've got on the side of them stones. Are they
Yeah.
representative of course of what I'm guessing you've done some research as well as to what those runes mean. So are they representative as to what those stones represent as well?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of Nordic rune stuff in the game. There's even some on one of the swords and just a lot of stuff in the game. We've taken a lot of Norse inspiration. The runes on those stones, they're all using the same runes right now, but they will use different runes later on in the game once we've sorted out the like basically rune language of the game. But yeah, we've got the Norseman mythology written out. I think we've released it, or if we haven't, it's coming out this week. So that's a good read as well if you want to go and read that.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. So alongside, of course, that is also kind of a breath of fresh air as well. But alongside not only making the game, but you're also releasing the lore in the run up to the game. Obviously, this is a backstory lore as well. So is that not another kind of difficulty alongside doing it, or is it pretty straightforward, the fact that you're creating the game but also just releasing that lore to the public whilst it's going? Or is it quite hard to keep on top of the lore and then also think, right now I've got to publish it to this website and produce kind of images or something to go alongside all this stuff? What's the difficulties behind coming up with the story in the first place? How hard was that process?
It's actually just a really relaxing thing for me to do, to just write lore, because it takes away, because I'm usually handling code and like animations and stuff that's not interesting, but you know, it's a breath of fresh air to be writing lore. And the lore is constantly evolving right now. Like we're still writing certain parts of it. We've got a lot of it written out and we're bleeding out and releasing some things. But all the concept designs and stuff we've released has been obviously influenced by the lore. So then once we release a large section of something, then we'll release the lore. Like we released the Order armor recently. We're going to release the Order lore soon. We've released the Norse mythology now. We're going to release some more like clothing to do with them soon. So it all goes hand in hand. And yeah, like I said, I just love like sitting on my bed, putting on some music, and just writing lore because it's just nice. Yeah.
What I noticed as well on the game, and this is kind of stuck out straight away for me, is the voice acting and the voiceovers and things like that. Though that seems that is really high quality. Have you hired someone specifically to do voiceovers, or is that somebody you know that's doing that for you, or how have you managed to get that sorted?
So the voice in the trailer, we actually got the guy off Fiverr, just a really good voice actor. Gave him the script and he came up with that. So that was amazing. But voice acting going forward, we've been casting already. We've got an email, casting@stormrite.com, if you want to send through some auditions or anything. Yeah, exactly. So we'll be doing official casting very soon, but we've already got a big talent roster to pick from, and we're going to contact them soon and just fill out roles. So yeah, voice acting's just it's being handled at the moment.
I know a Viking.
I'd be a Geordie Viking though.
We're very much in need of any UK or Scandinavian accents because that obviously fits into the lore of the game. So yeah.
Sweet. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. Awesome stuff. And how are you going to be doing? Obviously, and this is another pain, but are you going to be doing localization for a certain set of countries at launch? That's a really big and difficult one. I know, having spoken to not only just kind of UK developers and US developers, but also European and Thomas Sala. And localization is one of the most difficult parts of it all, and can often be some of the most costly sections of game development. What are you hoping to have in terms of localization at launch, in terms of languages? Obviously not for voiceovers, but for subtitles, text-based, etc.
Yeah.
What localization support are you going to have?
So we're looking to hit Spanish so all of these would be subtitles, and then if we could potentially in the future do full voiceovers, but that would be very tricky, especially for a team of our size. But subtitles wise, Spanish is definitely something we're going to do. We're thinking of Russian. I know someone who speaks fluent Polish who said that they would be willing to do localization. So obviously we'll see about that. So Polish could be potentially another one. And just any, like we look at the demographics of our market quite a lot. So if we see a demographic, a large one that hasn't got localization, then we'll try and get localization for that demographic. But yeah, Spanish and Russian are the main ones right now.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's awesome.
And like for Asian markets, right? I mean, you have like Japan and stuff. That's a completely different world, right? Is that something you have to arrange, or is that something that ID at Xbox does for you?
As far as I know, it's something that I have to arrange, but I would probably ask them before I do that. But it's not hard to find someone to localize them. It's just a case of having the money to pay them to localize it is the problem. Because if you have like the lore you are writing, right? You say you're just sitting on your bed writing lore and stuff. I mean, that's all has to be translated as well, right? Yeah. So that would also be part of the localization we'd have to do. So it is just a case of getting everything that we have and just sending it off to someone, getting them to translate it, and then just setting another version. So implementing it isn't hard. It's just the money is obviously a problem.
Okay. Yeah. The localization costs are quite costly. You probably, thankfully, like you say, you know a few people of certain localizations anyway that are willing to come out and help support you, and that's awesome to hear. I would imagine the only two major ones that you might have to consider that might be a bit more difficult or tricky is Brazilian Portuguese is usually one for the Brazilian market, and then obviously, as Vin mentioned, the Asian market, Chinese potentially, and they've got so many branching versions of Chinese, which is so difficult. It's not like just one set; they've got so many. I would imagine they're going to be the more difficult ones to try and figure out closer to launch. and whether or not you're going to implement them straight away.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll find a way around it.
Yeah. We'll get there short
Yeah, yeah.
sometime. Brilliant stuff.
And
And you
it will
mentioned,
be Dutch.
what was that? And Dutch.
Dutch is one language that's rarely in games. So.
You can help localize it for him if you want.
My English is terrible. I don't even know how to translate something. So, my English is terrible, man. Better do that to the professionals. I don't want to ruin this game. He's 20 years old. He has a really bright future ahead of him. I'm not going to ruin it for him.
Awesome stuff. And I mean, what have your let's go back to a question for yourself again then. So who in the game development world over the years has been an inspiration to you to get into game development? Of course, not just games itself, but no doubt we always look up to somebody or some company, etc., that it really inspires you. So who are your inspirations?
So I've basically got. So initially it was New Star Games. Do you know about New Star Soccer, the
Yes.
football game? Yeah. They're a big inspiration because I like them as a company. They seem to, care about their games quite a lot and update them and frequently update them. And when I started off, I initially thought I'm going to make football games, and that's when I made my first game, made Keep It Up as well. So they were a big inspiration. But over the whole time, I've been in a couple game development communities, but the one I would say is the main one is Tim Ruswick's Game Dev Underground. I don't know, his videos are really informative. His community's great, and at the time when I was doing small games, he'd do this thing called Feedback Friday, where he'd play his community's games every Friday and give them feedback, and you'd just be in the Twitch chat talking about other people's games. They talk about your game. It's just a great way to learn. It just motivates you quite a lot.
Awesome stuff. And it's, I mean, one thing I've seen quite a bit as well is that the Reddit community, when it comes to game development, especially for ID, has been really great. Joe started off in very much the same vein. It was a case of he started on Reddit as well, showed off bits of his game, and then did like closed testing and things like that. Have you got to the point now where you launched a Discord? Have you got kind of people involved in that and ready to do closed betas and things like that with Discord? Is that something that you're planning on doing?
So we've got a Discord, and we were doing internal testing before the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
That was going very well. Sorted out a lot of bugs, and we just got a constant community, a lot of discussion recently as well, because a lot of new people from Kickstarter as well. We've got our subreddit as well. I post there a bit. There's not too much discussion going on, but I guess that will just grow over time. And speaking of Reddit, actually, I remember seeing a lot of Joe's stuff on the Unreal subreddit. It was interesting when I first saw that he was on the Idea Export program, because I was like, oh right, I saw all of his early concepts and prototypes on Reddit. Literally, like, it seems like we had a similar development timeline, because I remember seeing his early concepts when I was starting off. And yeah, so I've been posting to Unreal Engine's Reddit. My most upvoted post for Stormrite was I think it was the public test announcement, the first one in August 2020 on r/PC gaming. That did quite well. But yeah, Reddit's just great because you can post about your game and get a lot of feedback, get genuine, unfiltered feedback as well. It's not like people, because some platforms people give a lot of praise but not a lot of feedback. But Reddit is definitely very much feedback focused. So that's great. And Discord is also brilliant for getting feedback.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Have you? Because obviously, one thing you've probably seen with Joe as well is he posted a lot of his, like you said, his earlier concepts and designs, but also the earlier character movements and things like that, and watching his weird drunken Viking flop around his arms because he was still getting the character model sorted. Have you got some hilarious footage like that you've shown people or that you have in your locker?
Yeah, we've got there was a lot of ragdoll stuff at the start because I was experimenting with ragdolls. That's been toned down a bit in the game, but it's still there. And there's a couple bugs that I posted, like there was one where you jump on a barrel and it literally sends you flying into the sky. You just got a lot of funny GIFs and bugs like that, but yeah.
Do you save them?
Pardon?
Yeah, if you find that bug, and you do it.
Yeah.
Do you clip it and save it for yourself?
Yeah, yeah. If I find a bug, I add it to our bug spreadsheet to then fix at some point, whether it's tomorrow or in 2 months. But it'll be fixed before
But
I release.
but like the moment you jump on the barrel, you know, and you launch yourself,
Yeah,
is that something you just save, you know, and then keep forever to have fun about it, you know?
yeah, yeah. It'll be something to reference in the future. And whenever I play my game, I always record it because in case a bug like that happens, it's just yeah, it's great. But I've got a little folder of some bugs that some funny and just some very annoying and not funny at all. But yeah,
It's good. It's good.
Are you ever gonna share that, or
yeah, you could do a
when the
bug
game is finished
compilation.
and released, maybe, or
Yeah, yeah, I don't see why not. It would be a nice, funny video.
yeah, of course, yeah. I mean that would be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah,
It's
yeah. I'll
always good
definitely
to
do
see
that.
it. Like I say, with specifically with that with ID developers anyway, it's always great to see the kind of the transition and where they've started and where they're going and then the end product. It's really refreshing to see. And I think things like that as well really add to it as well, because if you've seen, especially just before Joe launched his game, he did literally a side by side, like where we started and like everything was falling apart and he was getting launched off the map and things like that, and then at the
Yeah.
end and he's drop kicking people and things, and so
Mm.
it's great to see the before and afters, and I would have been really interested to see um, where kind of the start, how the start of the world building itself, the actual world building, how hard has that been? Like coming up with a map, coming up with the areas, coming up with the like how you're gonna populate this particular area and design it and things like that. Is that something that you did all by yourself, or after adding team members of they kind of added feedback and said, right, I think we need to put this here as well, or how's that been?
Yeah, so like the whole time I was developing, I was also just writing down little story bits and ideas just on a Word document, literally so very unorganized, and I just like pick things off there to actually go forward with. But when I started making the map, I use this program called Builder. So like it lets you add mountains, plan out terrain and rivers and like canyons and all that stuff. So I had ideas of, oh yeah, the north is going to be snowy. North, what is that? How am I getting northeast? Yeah, northeast is going to be very snowy and mountainous. The center's like quite flat. So I had those ideas planned out already. So when I was developing the map, I just used those ideas and put them into reality. And then the actual lore around it, like I said, I've been writing it a lot, but Kim's been helping a lot with that as well. Like his mind is just brilliant. He just comes up with these ideas that are just sick, and he writes them. Then we refine them, and then we release them. Like he wrote the whole Norseman mythology, which we're about to release now, and I think it's the best piece of lore we've written so far. He's definitely amazing at that. So yeah, it's just a collaborative effort, really.
Yeah. Oh, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff.
Yeah.
What are you? I mean, what are your? Let's say I know we haven't got there yet, but have you got any ideas already at the moment for what you want to do post launch? Is there any kind of ideas that you want to potentially add to it, or even look to expand on it? Is this a game that could, if it does well, then go on a potential sequel? Have you got enough lore to go into that yet, or?
Yeah, so we've got. I don't know if you saw on our Kickstarter, but one of our stretch goals was the Agadrasil quest line, and that is basically it's another quest line. We had some concepts. We thought, oh, this is really cool, but it would be quite hard to implement without a budget. So the idea is, if we got to that goal on the Kickstarter, we'd be able to add that to the game. Unfortunately, we didn't reach that goal, but now that's definitely being pushed back to the first. If we were to do DLC, that would be the first DLC, because it's just it's like it's a really good concept, and we just have to flesh it out. So we've got ideas that if we don't want to put them in the main game, we put them back and then think about if we wanted to add them for DLC.
And then just flesh them out kind of as you go along. Once the game's finished and you've done some of the debugging from launch stuff, etc., then you think, right, okay, which one of these out of the pot is it just like put them all into a hat and then twiddle it out? There we go. Well, first bit of
Well, there's
DLC.
an idea. Yeah, pretty much.
Go with that one.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. And
How
what's
many backers have you got now then for the game? Okay.
I think we had 583, if I'm correct. Yeah, 583 backers. But
Okay.
the campaign's finished now.
that's
Okay.
absolutely
Oh,
awesome.
it's finished. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and did you achieve the stretch goal in the end?
Yeah, we got the first two stretch goals. So we got the
awesome.
horse, like non-horse mounts, extra spells. Then we've got animal companions. You can have like wolves and foxes following you around in the game. You can be able to tame them as well. That's something that I really wanted to put in the game, but again, it would be something that we would have to have an extra budget for. Luckily, we hit the goal, so it's great.
Awesome stuff. And you mentioned mounts and things as well. Are these is it going to be standard mounts that you're going to have? Is it just horses, or are you going to go down the route of, let's say, an Assassin's Creed, where you can mount like giant dogs and Pegasus and things that like mythological creatures? Like, what are the mounts looking like at the moment? Are they quite varied?
Yeah, so initially it was just horses, but since we hit the stretch goal, we're kind of expanding that now. So we're gonna have wolves, we're gonna have bears, and the idea of those mounts is once you get off them, they also double as someone to fight with you in the battle as well. So if you get off your wolf, they can fight with you as well. So that's, you know, double utility, and it looks cool, of course. But yeah, we haven't got any flying mounts planned as of yet, but you never know, I guess.
You never know. That I would imagine that'd be a difficulty in itself, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So it's an open world RPG, right?
Yeah.
So is the mount you have, you say it's fighting with you as a partner if you get off it? Can you level it? Well, is that level based or?
The horses won't fight with you, but the other ones would. Yeah, they would fight with you, and leveling them up, you'll be able to level up your animal companions, but mounts potentially. We haven't really thought about how we'll level the mounts up yet, but that's something we'll, I guess, think about in the future.
Yeah, if he fights with you, it's.
That'd be awesome.
I was like, maybe I can level him and make him a bit more powerful.
And how do you so what is the progression system like in the game as well then, speaking of leveling? So how does your character progress, and kind of what additional armor suits, or is there levels of armor suits you can unlock that are like more powerful than the next one, etc.? How's that looking?
Yeah, so the progression is interesting. So you start off as a complete blank slate, just a kind of useless squire. Just learn how to fight, just learn how to shoot a bow. And I don't think I talked about the magic system, actually. That's something I should have talked about. So the magic in Stormrite is all driven by focus crystals. So human characters in the game don't actually have magical powers at all. They're just humans. But then they can draw power from these focus crystals and then cast spells with the power they draw from the crystals. And then different crystals give you more powerful magic and can open up possibilities to use more spells. So when you level up your character, you can. So like the first tree would be. There's a little video of the skill tree already somewhere, but the first tree has a melee, ranged, and magic tier. Then you can pick two of those. So then once you pick two of those, say you pick magic and melee, you can't level up your ranged anymore. So then the next level of the tree would be pure melee mixed with magic, and magic. Then you pick two of those again. So like you specialize in what you want to along the way. So you kind of have to think about what you want your character to be at the end, but you're not locked into what, because you can always pick an alternative the whole time. So you're not locked in, and you can use mixtures as well. But I think that increases replayability, because then if you've chosen to not use ranged one time, your next playthrough you choose to use ranged, your next playthrough you choose to use ranged and magic. Like, it just increases replayability, and also, like, yeah, I don't know. I just like the system where you have to think about what you want late game instead of just being able to switch whenever.
Yeah. How you approach the game and things like that. Is there are you going to be then? Is that going to be locked throughout the campaign, or will you be able to kind of repurpose or kind of remove your stats and kind of remove everything you've done and then just say, scrap this? Like, this isn't working. I want to try this. Like, are you going to be able to kind of repurpose everything mid-game, or is it once you're locked in, you're locked in?
Yeah, I suppose it wouldn't be too hard to give the player the option to unlearn skills. So that's definitely something we could do. Yeah. Yeah. Why not? We'll see. But then there'll probably be a penalty. Like, you can't get all your skill points back. You get like 80% back. So there's some sort of penalty for not deciding what you want to do.
So how do you gain skill? How would you gain skill points in the game then? How do you earn them?
So every time you level up, you gain skill points, then you can get abilities. And then the further tiers on the tree are unlocked at certain levels. So the second one's unlocked at 15, first one at 5, next one at 15, then I think it's 30. But as you level up, you get more skill points and more skills.
Awesome. Is there a soft level cap then for the game, or a hard level cap? What's the highest you can go?
Our last skill tree is unlocked at level 100, so that would be the cap, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Well, it seems like it goes quite high.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I'm guessing then in future, if you had future expansions, etc., then you could potentially add more difficult enemies, etc., and then expand upon that skill tree, and then increase the level cap.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. Awesome stuff. The again going down the route of the art is, of course, at the beginning it was just yourself. So how did you come up with the art concept? Have you got a good passion for art? Were you very good at art in the first place, or how did you manage with that? Is that something that you've also been very interested in?
Yeah, my initial concepts were nothing short of embarrassing. My drawing skills are not very good. I did a GCSE in art, but I clearly didn't learn anything. So that's why we have Iron to do all the concepts, because he is obviously very good at art. So initially it was just placeholder stuff. Like I paid for some placeholder assets that we had in the game, and now we're kind of removing and replacing those placeholder assets with original art to give the game its own unique style. And the style is very much something we're focused on. Like we've got specific styles, specific like rules when creating art and assets, so we can have consistency throughout the game.
Well, that's awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to go completely sliding the topic to the sideways here. I'm always thinking as well regarding ID or indie developers. Who are you, self-published, or are you going to use a publisher?
So we're self-published at the moment, but very open to publishers. Currently, just seeing what's available, speaking to a couple of people. But yeah, we definitely be for the idea of getting a publisher. Yeah.
Make things a bit easier and do a little bit of work with you.
Yeah, exactly. I think for a first-time indie, for a game of this size, even though we have a team, a publisher is the smartest way to go, because ultimately they know the industry much better than I do. So.
Oh yeah, most definitely. How's it been hard to? Again, as you mentioned there, it is quite difficult as a first timer, and especially kind of as much as you know the industry, you don't know it that much yet, especially some of the intricacies or who to contact and things like that. So, how hard has it been to kind of get the ball rolling in terms of who you speak to and go, where do I go for this and where do I go for that? How much of a difficulty has that been for your first time?
So yeah, it's been quite difficult, but I think I've been kind of around the industry for about 3-4 years now. So I've learned a few things, even though I haven't put them into practice yet, because I haven't got a product of that scale. Now I finally do have a product of that scale, so I can put some of those things into practice, like the marketing techniques I learned. But the whole time I've been watching informative game dev videos, GDC talks, being part of game dev communities, learning from people who have released 15, 20 games. Like I'm in a Discord now called it's the How to Market a Game Discord, and it's just really experienced people talking about stuff in the game industry, and it's just it's so much easier to learn from other people than to learn from trial and error. So I speak to whoever I can, whenever I can, as much as possible, because ultimately I don't know the industry very well, even though I've been around for about 3 years.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
3 years.
Yeah.
17. And you get in the industry. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's honestly, it's inspirational, and it's, you would hope others of your age and even younger kind of can learn, not just learn from you, but take inspiration from you as well, because it is, and as you know, especially in the UK and Europe, kind of a lot of kids aren't really amounting to much these days. They're kind of just sitting around, dossing around, not doing much with themselves, and often kind of bunking off school or not really digging into something and just doing anything other than having some kind of life goal. I think being an inspiration like that, like you are right now at the age of 17 into 20, developing his first major game on a major console as well. that is inspirational for anybody of your age. So massive hats off to yourself, and fingers crossed. A lot of people, a lot of kids as well, can look at you and what you do, and what you produce as inspiration for getting into the gaming industry.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. There's actually quite a lot of really cool people around my age in the gaming industry. Like I speak to a few of them, and they're just doing their own thing, and it's nice to see that it's an industry where you can get into at such an early age, because the only restriction is having a computer. You don't even need a very good one. You just need to have a computer and have some sort of imagination to just go and do whatever you want.
Yeah, and where did you pick up coding for the first time then? Because that's not just it's not your average skill. So where did you start learning coding for the first time?
Yeah, so I did GCSE computing. That taught me like the basics and the ropes, but I think you have to self-teach yourself a lot. And I was just doing loads of small things, small projects, like even apps and websites, just learning how to code. I did an internship as well. Like just self-teaching is a valuable skill and an easy skill these days, because again, there's so many free courses. Stack Overflow is your best friend as a coder. Like there's just so many things you can learn from. Yeah, I self teach. Just don't rely on school. Just self teach, because the school system is flawed in some ways. But yeah,
Yeah, that's one thing I suppose that a lot of people that do Microsoft do it over in the US, but there's not a lot of it in the UK specifically, where there is like courses for coding or courses for kind of in-depth IT at a school level. The kind
yeah,
of, as we know, especially when I was still in school, like the most amount of coding you got was building a website. Like that is the basic level of coding that you would get at in IT in school. It wouldn't go any
yeah.
further than that. Like that is as much as you learnt, and they don't really elaborate on that. So to get somebody interested in coding in the first place, if you just sit and thinking, "Oh, coding's just building a website," like a lot of kids probably look at it and just say, "Well, this just looks like absolute jargon. Like, how can this make a game?" Like, it's not going to really entice you. Like, I think there has to be some kind of, and it is a very large industry now. It's bigger than music. It's bigger than video. It's bigger than film. Like,
Yeah.
it is the largest industry in the world. So I think there has to start being some kind of curriculum now that has to do with coding and game development, because it's a very large, and it brings so much to the community, so much GDP back in terms of investment and things like that. Like, we
Mm,
know over in the likes of Poland, etc., as you know, with CD Projekt Red, like CD Projekt is funded by the government. Like there
really?
is, yeah, the part funded,
Wow.
because it brings back it, because they are the largest and best thing in terms of, should we say, from an art perspective, they're the biggest thing to come out of Poland for a very long time. So they want to
Yeah.
encourage that. So they've had investments and funding from the government, to kind of help with their games, because of course there was Witcher 1 and 2, and as great as they were, they did not take off like they did. And of course, The Witcher as a whole is derived from someone's novels. Um, but yeah, Witcher 3, of course, with that additional funding, just absolutely blew the roof off, and
Mm,
rightly so. And but there is a lot of game developers around the world now that are getting grants from local governments. I think over in the Netherlands, they also do grants for game developers as well.
Yeah.
But of course, Unreal, as you know, working with them, Epic, they also do the mega grants. Have you thought about applying for a mega grant?
I've thought and I have applied, so I'm just waiting to hear back from
Waiting.
them. Hopefully it's good news. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of funding sources, but I think the problem is they're not really exposed and not as publicly, like, not they're not public knowledge. Like there's, for example, the UK Games Fund. I didn't know that was a whole fund set up to fund and give money to UK game developers. I only found about
Oh.
Oh,
Oh.
he's gone.
Things having some technical issues. Yeah.
hello, I'm
Hello.
back.
Got you back. Got you back.
Hi.
Vis-
I don't know where I stopped, but
Funding.
um
Funding in UK. You didn't know that the UK government had a funding pot.
oh yeah, that. So I applied for the most recent round. I just missed the round before that by like a couple of days, which was annoying. But yeah, there's just so many. There's a lot of funding sources you just don't know about. So if you look out, you'll find places where you can get funding, and there's of course crowdsourced funding, but that is a different. different
Yeah,
kind of
different
funding.
beast altogether. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's absolutely awesome. I would say then, what are your, if you're looking to the future now, you're still very young yourself. Are you looking to hopefully make a real go of being like an independent developer, or do you someday have aspirations of working for a very large kind of game development studio? What are your thoughts? I know it's a tricky question right now, specifically
Yeah.
in the middle of your first game, but being at such a young age as well, and especially setting up an indie studio at the age of 20, that is an achievement in itself. But what are your personal aspirations going forward?
So when it comes to gaming, I've always had creative control, and I don't think I'd be able to give that up. Even if it was for a very large company, I would love to work for one, but at the same time, I just love having creative control. So I think I would definitely try and, if I can, make my own games in the future, potentially transition to the football gaming market to right EA's wrongs per se. But
that
we'll see. But yeah, I'm
won't be
just
hard. That won't be hard.
yeah, but I'm just very committed to Stormrite as a project right now, trying to finish that and see where we go from there.
Yeah, and obviously, hopefully, be a massive success. It
Yeah,
is looking extremely promising. Again, before we go, I'll put the trailer up one more time for those latecomers coming in.
cool.
But it is honestly, it is such an impressive looking game so far. I'm just so
Yeah.
intrigued about kind of where the story takes you, um, and also the size of the game. What length of game do you foresee this having? Is there a particular kind of hours length that you've kind of planned out so far, or do you think it can be open to interpretation with it being an open world RPG?
It's hard to give an hour's length, but with like if we're talking relatively, I would say the gameplay length and replayability of again Skyrim is what we're aiming for. A kind of game where you can go through the main storyline, but there are plenty of side quests, plenty of side storylines, and also different ways to build your character to just explore the world. So that's we're focusing on replayability in an open world and also a story that you want to play again because there are different ways that you can approach it. So that's what we're going for. But it's hard to give an hour's time.
Yeah,
Just a,
and
just a couple of thousand.
just a couple of just a couple of thousand. But no, if we're basing it on Skyrim, then you're talking probably about what is that 30 to 50 hour kind of main campaign then, and then branching on depending on side quests.
Yeah, seems about right. It seems about the correct amount of time you'd want for a game of the value that we're going for as well. Because you don't want to pay a lot of money for a game that's 3 hours long because ultimately you haven't got your value for money. Um, but yeah, replayability is a big focus as well, definitely.
Most definitely, most definitely. And have you? And this is going to be a difficult one to answer because you probably haven't even thought this far ahead yet. But have you thought of where the price banding that you want to achieve for when it comes out at launch?
So a price that I've always kind of stuck to is £30 or maybe a readjustment to around $30.
Yep,
So that around that kind of area. So if we're talking about a 30-hour game, roughly £1 per hour that you play the game, kind of thing.
that's awesome.
Yeah, well, play the game just as in its main storyline. If you were to just play the storyline and then delete the game, yeah,
Which hopefully people don't do. Yeah.
which we really hope you don't do. Yeah,
No, it looks honestly, it looks really, really something. It does look really something special. I haven't seen an indie come up with something like this like before. I've also noticed underneath there you've got Apakama Technologies. Now, is that what's that about? Are you using something that nobody else is using? Or is
oh no, that's just the name of our LLC, so we can like illegally trade.
trade?
It's nothing major. There's nothing brewing that we haven't shown.
That you've not implemented into something that no one else has got yet.
Not quite, not quite.
That would definitely be something. Definitely be something special if that was the case. I was like, well, that looks intriguing. But no, the world itself, it looks absolutely phenomenal. The story, I'm really intrigued to get into. I'm really intrigued to hear that you've got not only just one main storyline, but kind of multiple main storylines. Does it all come to a head? Does it all kind of come to an accumulation in the end then? do all of them kind of marry up in the end for one main goal?
Yeah, so the main storyline you'll be able to approach different ways, but it will come to one climax, not the same ending. Like there'll be a few different endings, but all in the rough same idea. So it kind of all comes to one satisfying end that you're not thinking, oh, why has that happened, or like don't feel unfinished kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. That is awesome. And your main character as well. You mentioned he's a squire, but is there a character build option? Like is there a character creator, as we know, like a bit like Skyrim, where you can mold his face and change his looks, etc. Or he's very much just a character that you've created, and then you can just add the armor and choose a path or something like that.
Yeah, we've got a character creator. The character's dimensions won't really be changeable that much because that is a lot of work with like changing the armor and clothing along with the dimensions. But you can change the face, the hair, the just basic character creator functions kind of thing.
Awesome stuff. And I imagine one of the hardest parts I've noticed from, regardless of game developer size, big and large, is if you have long hair and you have a helmet on, clipping of the hair through the helmet. Now, I imagine that's going to be a difficult one for you to solve.
That is going to be a problem. I think the easiest way to solve that is just have like a base kind of hair thing that just comes out the bottom of the helmet every time. But
when you've got the helmet on, it technically just removes the hair. And then you take the helmet off and the hair goes back on again.
Yeah, that's the easiest solution. So we'll think about that. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. And final question from me then is, again, more along the lines of the character creation. But with you mentioning there is should we say races / different areas of the map that are different things. So you've got Romans, you've got Vikings, you've different nationalities and things like that. Is that something that you also choose at the beginning, like where you come from, what kind of soldier you are? Are you a Norseman? Are you a Roman? Are you this? Is that something that you can choose as well, or?
So we've got the races planned out, but the Norseman is the only one where the law's fully written, fully fledged, and we're going to release that soon. But when you start the game, you'll be able to choose your race, and that will affect how your character looks and potentially stats, and will affect the storyline to some extent. But the only race you won't be able to choose is an Agrippin, which is the Roman-inspired one, because that's very much its own secular storyline, and they're a kind of a secular community, so you won't be able to choose that race. But other ones, feel free, have at it.
Awesome stuff. Yeah. And last question then, based on if you can choose your race at the beginning, do them races then have a knock-on effect on how the other races take to you and interact with you? Is that something that you're going to implement? I mean, these are difficult things. I know it's a lot of a lot of things to try and implement, especially in your first game. But would it have a knock-on effect on how the world interacts with you, depending on what race you are?
Yeah, so your allegiance with different communities and races definitely affects how the world interacts with you. But the race you start off with, I feel like it would kind of be mean for a starting off player to choose a race and then realize, oh, I can't go to this place because I'm this race. And also that is very problematic as well. But there'll be hints at it in the dialogue and stuff like that. Just small things you can pick up on, but we would be too restrictive with the race your character chooses.
Awesome stuff. Vin, do you have any final questions for Kelechi before we let him go?
Yeah.
Yes.
But
go on.
Go for it. The thing is, if I look at trailer, right, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
But you see multiple perspectives, right? I see something first person, I see something top down. So is that something I can choose, or is that?
So you're going to have an option to go third person or first person.
Yeah.
It's a full third person game. You've got we have like a thing in debugging where you can switch to first person, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, sometimes it works. But we'll think about that. But third person is definitely what we're designing the game around. So like the angles in the trailer are just purely for cinematic emphasis.
Okay, because
yeah.
If I look at it like this, in the trailer, it's also possible to make some strategy options to it. Is there gonna be like big fights between sections or?
Yeah, there will be big fights in the story at some points, but we won't really have like a strategic kind of battle thing. Yeah.
Okay, because it looked like that a bit in the trailer, so I was like, are you hinting to something? But
Well, that would
you
be.
won't spoil it then.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand what he's saying though. That kind of having that kind of view kind of gives you a wider view of the battle and what
Yeah.
you're getting yourself in for, etc. But I think obviously if it's third person, you're going to get quite a good kind of view of the battlefield anyway. No, absolutely awesome. Vin, have you got what other questions have you got for Kelechi then?
Oh, that's about it. I, I'm, I'm gonna wait now for it to show up. I mean, you said like Q1, end February, beginning of March 2022.
Yeah.
Is that like a public demo or is it closed or how are you gonna do that?
So yeah, we're going to release to Steam, and we might line it up with a festival that's happening around that time. But if not, we'll just release the demo to Steam. I'm not quite sure how Xbox does demos, so I can't really say if there will be an Xbox demo. But there'll definitely be a Steam one.
I would drop drop Joe a message. He's quite open. Just ask him because he did. Oh, he paused again. I hope he can hear us.
It's messing up at the moment.
It's all right. It's all right. Don't worry about it. But yeah, drop Joe a message. He released a demo as well on Xbox, so he'd probably be able to give you some help as to how he approached that and how he put that on there. He's really, really. If you've never spoke to Joe before, definitely drop him a message because he's really open and he'll definitely give you a hand with anything that you need. Specifically with that, because again, he's worked with ID at Xbox, but he's also put a demo onto the console as well. Like it was a timed demo. Is that what you're going for as well with yours? Is it going to be timed? So it's going to be available for like a week or two?
Yeah, probably timed because we don't want people playing it the whole time up until release because then they might get bored or actually, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, there will be a demo. Is all we can promise.
More like a trial then.
Yeah.
Yeah, a slight slice of that game that you can't, to get you interested.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. So when you've got that demo, you mentioned obviously Q1, Q2, 2022. What is your hope then for release next year? You're looking at kind of winter next year, then Q4 for a full release.
Yeah, Q4 2022 is our planned release date. That's the date we're going for. Seems like we should be able to hit that as we're going. But if anything drastic happens, we will notify the community and everyone will be kept in the light. So it won't be a surprise or anything. But yeah.
So we are going to meet you at Gamescom 2022 then?
I hopefully, if I can get there, yeah.
Awesome stuff. You know what? This is another thing as well, and obviously this is probably something that would have helped you even more to kind of promote your game had it not been in a COVID world. Is the fact that there are so many kind of conferences for developers that are usually open in a non-COVID world, and Xbox do that as well. Of course, they've got the ID at Xbox Showcase, but they also do a physical version that is at FanFest. And that's something that you would have been able to do. And of course, I know no doubt in the future they'll have something before you release, like a fan fest or anything. Would you be open to appearing at there or having a kind of a small section, have a demo there, or is that something that you would hope?
I'm trying to get to as many physical festivals and conferences as I can because I feel like that's one of the great things about being a dev, just being able to see these fellow devs, speak to them, speak to people in person, let them play your game at first time and just see like genuine excitement.
Yeah.
And also being able to go to countries that I've never been to as well. So definitely I'm down for that.
Sweet. Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up for today. It's been an absolute pleasure, brother. Absolute pleasure. And it's been really great to know you and getting to know you today. I would like you to do a shout out for yourself where you can find more on about your game, where it is releasing, and where they can either favorite it or wishlist it or whatever it is. Give it a big shout out to yourself and your team. Go for it.
Okay, yeah, it's been a great like this has been honestly brilliant. Like it's especially for a first podcast, it's been a nice warm environment. So thank you so much. But yeah, if you want to find out about the game, Stormrite.com is the main focus point. Like we've got all our social menus, we've got the Steam page, we've got information, the lore, everything's there, and it's pretty easy to navigate. So Stormrite.com. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Kelechi Apakama. I know that might be hard to spell, but I think my name is in the video description.
It is, yeah.
So
It's in the description below. Yeah, that's right.
cool. And then on Instagram, we are at I've just closed my Chrome. We're at Stormrite Game. I'm not sure if that's got an underscore or not. I will check. Yeah, Stormrite Game, no underscore between it. Just that's our Instagram, and then yeah, just Stormrite.com. Everything's there. That's the easiest way.
Awesome stuff, brilliant. And as he detailed before, he's hoping to have a demo for Stormrite out on fingers crossed both platforms, but most definitely Steam on between Q1 Q2 next year, which we'll be looking forward to seeing and getting a nice taste of the game. And then fingers crossed, all goes to plan, and there is no kind of drastic setbacks, and then COVID disappears and makes things a bit easier for development. Then you can get your game fully released by Q4 2022. Really excited to see where this game goes and how it develops over time, and also how this game improves. Have you got any plans to release any further trailers over the next few months?
Yeah, so we're gonna do a gameplay trailer at some point. We'll do a trailer before the demo drops as well. That'll probably be the gameplay trailer actually. And then when we're doing our NFT drops, I know I completely forgot to mention that, but there's information on our website about that and also in the Discord. But we'll be doing NFTs for Stormrite. Every single time we've got a drop for those, we'll have a trailer with that. So yeah, there's a lot of visual content to keep you satisfied.
Brilliant. That is absolutely awesome. And I will also do a nice outro for our panel member this evening, Mr. Vin. Let people know, brother, where they can find you. And of course, you're sticking around after the show in half an hour's time for our coverage of the Sony showcase. So, other than that, what are you going to be doing after that showcase?
After the showcase, probably going to bed. Because my kids have to go to school tomorrow. But you can find me basically everywhere on as Hertog Vin X. On Twitch, on Twitter, on Instagram, you name it. Xbox, PlayStation Network. Doesn't matter. You can basically find me everywhere. We'll be continuing The Last of Us tomorrow on stream. Yep. And I hope Kelechi comes back again. It was fun talking to you, man.
Yeah, I'd definitely come back here at some point.
Yeah, because it's really nice talking to you, man. It's really impressive for 20 years old.
Thank you.
No, man, I like what I've seen in the trailer. I like speaking to you now, so I hope you come back sometime and show us more.
Most definitely. I've got something I can get involved in actually in the future, Kelechi. We did one this year, and it was called the Community Indie Showcase. We got basically some of the largest content creators for Xbox to unveil their most anticipated games coming to any platform, but it was for indie titles only. We had over 76 indie games showcased this year. We had 4 developers directly involved, including game codes, giveaways, and introducing their games specifically. So that will be taking place in April of next year. So I'll be very keen to have you involved on that and potentially get a nice shiny new trailer on for that show as well. So yeah. That would be awesome. If you'd be happy to take part in that, we're looking to get things much bigger for next year. So
of course, yeah, I'm ready, and we'll have the demo for that as well. So that'll be brilliant.
Sweet. Happy days. Yes, we'll get it arranged. But yeah, it'd be absolutely awesome. Most definitely.
Oh, sorry guys, I forgot OnlyFans. Yeah.
You can't do that on OnlyFans anymore. It's banned. It's no longer that. It's a nice place.
No, it's back.
Oh, it's back, is it?
Oh. Yeah, it's back.
You've already done one hot tub stream, Vin. No more. That's it.
You have to say that to Muppet. He's not agreeing on that. He wants me to do one more. So
Oh, dear me. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, everybody. Thank you to everybody in chat that's come out and supported Kelechi and getting to know him. Of course, we will be sharing this out and sharing this within our community. Please, everybody, go and hit him up, give him a follow, give him some support. And obviously, we look forward to seeing more of Stormrite as it progresses and it gets closer to launch. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. And again, massive thank you to everybody for turning up. It's been really great fun getting to know more about this game. I hope everybody has a really great night, and we will see you very shortly for our coverage of the Sony Showcase. See you soon.
bye bye.
Cheers.